There are many stories from the north of England and the south of Scotland, the border country, about Habetrot. And Habetrot was the fairy guardian of spinning wheels and of spinners. And this is a story that features Habetrot, and it's from Selkirkshire. There was once a woman who lived in a little cottage in Selkirkshire, and she had one daughter, a beautiful daughter. But that daughter preferred to wander out in the fields and in the hills and in the woods than she did learning the art of spinning. Now, even today in the border country, the weaving of fine cloth is an important industry. And back then, if a young woman wanted to do well in life, she had to learn to spin. It was very, very important. But this young lady, she had no interest, and she could not master the skill of spinning. And this used to frustrate her mother terribly and worry her mother terribly, until one day she grew tired of it, and she laid down an ultimatum, and she said, "You have 3 days, 3 days to turn these 7 piles of flax into 7 reels of fine spun yarn." The young girl knew there was something different about this particular ultimatum. She knew her mother meant business, and she was worried. So she set about the task. She tried her best. She tried really hard. But in the afternoon of the second day, having tried her hardest and with her lips all sore from licking her fingers to draw out the flax, she just gave up. She gave up, and she ran out of the house crying. She ran across the fields, down into the woods. She ran down by the little wooded glade with all the wildflowers and a little burn, a little stream that ran through it. It's one of her favourite places. And she sat there weeping, because she knew she would never complete this task, and her mother would be furious. And to her surprise, she became aware of a figure sitting beside her. She turned round, and there was an old lady sitting there. And there was nothing particularly unusual about this old lady's appearance, other than the fact that her lip was red and sore and drooped away down. Now the young girl was polite, and she turned round and she said, "Good afternoon, grandmother," because that was a polite way to address an old lady in those days. And she gave a curtsy. Now this pleased the old lady, and she smiled and she said, "Good afternoon, young lady." Now the girl was too polite to comment on the old lady's lip, but she was curious. And the old lady said, "I see that you're looking at my lip. Don't be embarrassed. That's come of all the spinning I do, and all the licking of my thumb and the licking of my finger to draw out the yarn." And the girl became quite upset at this point. She said, "I should be spinning too, but I just cannot master it. And my mother is going to be so angry with me because I have only till tomorrow to spin 7 reels of yarn from the 7 piles of flax that I have, and I just cannot do it. I've only managed just a very small amount. Ah, said the old lady. She said, bring it to me. I will spin it for you. And the young girl was absolutely delighted, and she skipped across the burn. And she ran across the fields and back to the house, and she grabbed all the piles of flax, and she ran back down and skipped across the burn. And she waded across to the point where the old woman was sitting. And it was only then that she noticed that the old lady was sitting beside a self-bored stone. Now, when I say self-bored stone, I'm talking of the stones that you sometimes see in little streams and rivers that have been there for so long that the rivers and the streams have bored a hole through them. And they're also said to be windows into the fairy kingdom. And if you're lucky enough to find one, and if you're lucky enough for it to be on the right day, at the right time of the year, then you can see through into the fairy kingdom. Anyway, she gave the flax over to the old lady, and then she turned to thank the old lady, but she was gone. Now, the young woman, she wandered about looking for the old lady for a little while, and then she became very tired. She sat herself down beside the tree, and she fell asleep. It was only when Cosleen, the evening star, came out that she awoke from her sleep. And as soon as she awoke, the old lady was there beside her, and she had 7 reels of the finest yarn she had ever seen. The young girl was absolutely delighted, and she thanked the old lady, and the old lady said, one thing, when you take this back to your mother, don't tell her you spun the yarn. The young girl promised, and she went skipping back across the burn and through the fields and back home. It was quite late by this time. When she walked into the house, her mother had already gone to bed. But there was a wonderful smell in the house. And the young girl put all the yarn on the table. She turned towards the fireplace because her mother had been cooking sausages, preparing sausages during the day, and she'd hung them in the chimney to dry and to smoke. And the young girl realised that she'd been sitting in the woods, sleeping in the woods there much of the day, and she hadn't had anything to eat. She was very hungry. So she took one of the sausages down from the chimney, and she fried it over the fire. She ate it. But then she took another one. She fried that and she ate it. And in the end, she took all 7 sausages and ate them before she went to bed herself. Now in the morning, her mother was first awake. She was a very early riser. And she woke up and she went into the kitchen. And she saw 7 reels of yarn, finest yarn she'd ever seen. She was absolutely amazed. Spun this beautiful, beautiful yarn. And then she noticed that the 7 sausages were gone. And she was just overwhelmed by what had happened. And she went rushing out of the cottage, and she was shouting at the top of her voice, 7, 7, 7 reels of yarn my daughter has spun. 7, 7, 7 sausages she's eaten, and all before daybreak. Now, She was creating quite a commotion, and a handsome young laird was passing by, the laird of all the land in that area, and he heard her, and he came to us. He says, "What's the matter, madam?" And she said, seven reels of yarn my daughter has spun, and 777 sausages she's eaten, and all before daylight. And if you don't believe me, come inside and have a look. So the laird did go inside, and he saw the yarn on the table, and he never, ever, even in his high station, he'd never met anybody who could spin yarn of that quality. And he asked if he could see the spinner. So the lady proudly went and called for her daughter, and the daughter came out, and she stood there blushing in part because it was a laird, but also blushing because she knew she hadn't spun the yarn. But the laird was very impressed. He was impressed by her spinning, but he was also impressed by her beauty. And he asked for her hand in marriage. And the mother and the girl agreed. The laird went away to prepare for the wedding, and the girl left the cottage and went running down across the fields to the woods and to the burn, and she ran through the burn, skipped across the water to the other side. She started to shout and cry, "Habetrot, Habetrot!" And in an instant, Habetrot, the spinner fairy, was there beside her. And the girl began to tell the story of what happened. She became quite distressed, and she said, "But what am I to do? What am I to do? I cannot spin. The laird will find out that I've been lying. And what will become of me then?" Habetrot said to the girl, "Don't you fret, don't you fret. On the day of your wedding, after the ceremony, you bring your husband here, bring the laird to the self-bored stone. I will sort your problem out." That's what she did. They were married, and on the day of the wedding, the girl brought the laird across the field into the woods and down to the burn, paddled through the burn, both of them, till they came to the self-bored stone. And they listened, and they heard talking on the other side of the stone, and it was Habetrot's voice. And she was saying, "Come on, Scantlie, keep on with your spinning, keep on with your spinning." And they looked through the self-bored stone, and they saw Habetrot, long swollen red lip, and she was surrounded by a whole group of spinner women, all with the same long red sore lip and flattened out thumbs and fingers from spinning, and splayed toes from holding the yarn in their bows. And they were all spinning away and spinning and spinning away and spinning away and drawing out the yarn. The Habetrot knew that they were looking through the self-bored stone, and she went and she opened a secret door under a tree, and she said, "Come in." She took the young girl and the laird down into the cavern where they were spinning, and there was Habetrot, the Scantlie man, and the other spinner women. the laird said, wasn't as polite as a young girl, and he asked straight out why their mouths appeared as they did, and why their thumbs and fingers appeared as they did, and why their toes were splayed. And Habetrot, she winked at the girl. She said to the laird, well, this is what happens when you're a spinner. This is what happens. We all. And she demonstrated, she showed how she had to lick and lick and lick to pull out the yarn. And that's it. The laird was convinced. He said, my wife shall never spin again. And she never did. She used to walk in the fields with her husband the laird, and she used to ride beside him on their horses up in the hills, and all the flax that was grown on his land was sent to Habetrot and the spinner fairies, and it kept them busy